So I just want to quickly talk about the different types of tweening, which is the way that the Animate will allow you to keyframe your animations. So they have classic, shape, and motion tween. And this can be a little bit confusing. So I just want to quickly show you what those are, and then hopefully it will make a little bit of sense. You might find that you have one preference over another. But basically, the classic tweens were the original way that you used to animate inside of Animate back when it was called Flash. And it was pretty robust. People really liked it. A lot of traditional animators still prefer it. But it has some advantages and some weaknesses. So you can animate multiple symbols on one layer. You can control the ease between each keyframe. Some of the disadvantages is that it can be kind of complicated. And it doesn't necessarily have good paths, right? The motions might be a little bit more linear. So just as an example here, let's just use this thing. So the way it works is you do something like this, and then I would create a keyframe. Okay, so we'll just do it at 10. All right. Now, if you look, it's actually just a copy of that drawing. Like it's like a new drawing. Okay. And then what I would do is I could put this, let's say, down here. Okay. Now, you'll see I have this frame and this frame. Okay, so they're just two separate frames. And then all I do is I can right click and I go create classic tween, and it's going to blend that one to this one. Now that's fine, but let's say I want to then go up, right? So I'll just hit F6 again up here, and I'll go back up. Okay, so same thing as before. Now I'm just going to right click and create classic tween. But what you're going to notice is see how it's very linear. It's like it's not a curve. It's really difficult to do that. There are ways of doing it, but it's sort of cumbersome. But the advantage is that you could just do a bunch of keyframes initially, and then you can time it, and then worry about doing tweens afterwards. You can also do this. I could create an empty keyframe here, and then use this symbol instead, right? And I'm just going to put onion skinning on so I can see. No, it's up here. Okay, put it here. Okay, and then I'm going to turn this back off. And then I could go, F6, and then put this down here, okay? And then just do the same thing, create classic tween. So I can actually switch my symbol all on the same line, right? So basically, this is particularly useful because, for example, when I was doing this jump one here, right? You can see he actually has different drawings, and I am having motion. So I do this. He switches drawings all in the same timeline. Okay, so this would be easier to achieve using that classic manner. However, it's not going to do a very good job of the arcs. It's going to be kind of hard to do that. So that is the classic keyframing, is that it's sort of drawing specific. That's the classic tween. Okay, let's talk about motion tween, which is what this is. Now, motion tween is the newer method. It's actually more similar to what you probably have used in other pieces of software. You can only have one symbol per layer, which means it's really difficult to kind of switch the symbols, such as I just showed you a second ago. But it does have the advantage of being able to move the curves, right? So you can notice how this one has a much nicer bounce. The arcs are a lot better because I can control the path. So I'll just show you that real quickly. So I'm just gonna let's just hide this one. I'll just make a new layer. I'll just stick this guy. I could do the movie, but we'll just use this. Okay. So it's already been extended this long. You do not just put keyframes in like you did before. What you do is you make a span. This is called a span. You right click and I do motion tween. It'll turn gold. And then every time I move it, okay, it's going to automatically create a keyframe. Now I can hit F6. That will also make a keyframe. So if I wanted to hold there, and then I could go back down like that, right? So you can do something like that. But the difference is that I can actually go over this curve and actually make it rounded, and now the motion can go like that, and now it's got a nice curve to it. Okay, but I can't switch the symbol out because it's just one span. And there's some other advantages as well, but that's roughly how they're sort of different. In some ways, this is going to be easier, this method, because I can go through and change the type of easing. So I want it to ease in, so it goes slower to start. So I can click on this and go here and do ease in, and let's just do a really strong one. And then what you'll see is, turn this one off. It will start out slower and go a little bit faster, although it doesn't really show it that much. But that's the idea behind it. Okay, so the classic tween or the motion tween will allow for these like nice arcs and stuff, and it's makes a little bit more sense because I can like switch things around. If I move something here, I can put an extra key in. You know what I'm saying? So as opposed to here, where every time I make a new keyframe, insert keyframe, it's like I'm putting in a new drawing, and so it's very linear. There we go. It's very linear. Okay, so kind of, so sometimes I can see how one's over advantageous over the other, but just be aware of that. That's the way that is. Okay, let's go ahead. So that is the motion tween. The shape tween is basically what it suggests is that it will blend from one shape to another shape. Generally speaking, this almost always looks terrible. It doesn't work very well. So you can see I tried to blend between a square and a circle. The weird thing about this one is you actually don't use symbols for it. You actually have to keep it as the shape itself. So do not make it a symbol. And then you put another keyframe and then you blend. So I'll just show a quick example here. You're going to be doing this anyway, but let's just turn these off. So the idea is that I would let's do a rectangle, okay? And then what I would do is hit F6 to create another keyframe, and then I can manipulate this into some shape, okay? And then what you do is you right-click and you do Shape Tween, and then it will blend. Now, if it's very simple, such as this, works great, right? That looks really good. That totally is valid. But if it's anything that has any sort of complexity, like if you had a character that has eyes and a mouth and stuff, it will not work. They'll just turn inside out and move all over. So the more complex the shape, the more it just isn't successful. But it could be used for things like you're going to have a wave flag, like a flag waving, right? Or a cape or a rope or something like that. Like simple objects that are just kind of fluttering. It will work pretty well. But you generally lack control. That was weird. I don't know why that turned red. Okay. The last method is just frame to frame, which is what we've been doing. You just create a new drawing every single drawing, which is how I created this cone dancing guy. It's very time consuming, but it's also kind of the more robust. There's no real limit to it. But like I said, it requires probably the most skill, I would say, to some degree, because you have to be able to draw consistently from one frame to